Have you ever needed to explain a film's ending to a friend? Or had to Google the answer yourself? Some movies end with more questions than answers, and directors, either intentionally or not, baffled fans with confusing and ambiguous conclusions to their movies. Here, we count down several endings which just plain right confused us. Don't forget to hit that red subscribe button below. Also, be sure to join our notification squad to stay current on all our videos. Before we move on, can you guess what feature film these emojis are referencing? Make it through to the end of the video to find out. Now, let's begin.
You didn't see what I just saw. I'm telling you, this guy's the real deal.
Birdman. This 2014 dark comedy has won several Academy Awards and has been accredited for its symbolism and themes. It tells the story of a faded actor, Regan Thompson, played by Michael Keaton, who battles with his mentality throughout. He reached ultimate fame at the start of his career through playing the superhero Birdman. He struggles between artistic integrity and celebrity arrogance, where he wants the world to see more than just his character, but a true actor also. In an attempt to be more genuine with his performances, Regan accidentally shoots his nose off with a loaded handgun while on stage. After waking up in the hospital with a bandaged face, Regan takes it off to reveal his noseless, bird-like features. Entranced by the birds outside his window, he approaches it and climbs out. The final scene shows his daughter, a recovering drug addict, staring wide-eyed to the sky at presumably her father. Avid fans have deciphered this baffling ending, arriving at a couple of theories. The most believable is that Regan died in the final scene and Sam hallucinated her father flying. However, we still like to believe he just turned into a bird. According to the film's director, Alejandro G. Iñárritu, he wanted the ending to be this ambiguous and to leave it up to the viewer's own interpretation.
I know how to search your mind and find your secrets. I know the tricks.
Inception. Released in 2012 by director Christopher Nolan, the mind-boggling Inception had us all scratching our heads. Whether it's the dream in a dream concept or the fact that Dom Cobb, played by Leonardo di Caprio, is stealing secrets from an individual's subconscious, it's all pretty confusing. Since the release, fans have been desperate to figure out the meaning to the ending. In the final scene, we see Dom finally arriving home and using the symbolic totem to test as to whether he is still dreaming or not. Anyone who's watched the film for the 10th time has probably realized by now that if the totem is spinning indefinitely, this meant that the spinner was still in a dream. Excited to see his children, Dom ignores the result of the spinner and joins them. This leaves us wondering as to whether Dom was in reality or if it was just a dream. Determined to figure it out once and for all, fans came up with their own theories. To resolve the never-ending limbo of confusion, Nolan decided to discuss it in a 2015 interview. He gave quite a philosophical explanation, which was not as clear-cut as we would have liked it. He said that all levels of reality are valid, meaning that because Dom didn't care anymore about his dream state, only his subjective reality mattered. For those of you who love ad-free viewing and free things, we're excited to announce the Premium Network. The Premium gets you early access to videos from Screen Rant, CBR, The Gamer, and many other great channels. Literally thousands of videos in one place with ad-free browsing. How sweet is that? Sign up for free at The Premium by clicking the link to start binge-watching videos from your favorite channels.
Here's Johnny!
The Shining. Based on Stephen King's novel, this classic has gone down in history as one of the best horror movies ever made. It follows the story of Jack Torrance accepting a caretaker's job at the isolated Overlook Hotel. When supernatural forces start to influence Jack's sanity, this leads to a sequence of violence and eventually him being possessed by an evil entity. No matter how many times we watch it, we can still never figure out what the ending actually means. The final shot is a photograph of Jack Torrance shown as a resident of the Overlook Hotel. The scary thing is, the photo was taken in 1921, 60 years after the film was set, which makes it impossible that this was Jack. So the question we're left with is, what's Jack doing in 1912? Who better to answer this than the director himself? Stanley Kubrick discussed the ending, and his explanation solves not only the meaning of the photo, but backs up many other theories as to what's happening in the plot. Kubrick stated that the ballroom photograph at the very end suggests the reincarnation of Jack. This suggests that the hotel has the power to recall reincarnated versions of its past guests and employees, meaning that Jack was a reincarnated being. Spooky or what? We almost wish we didn't know the ending now. Silent Hill. Inspired by the 1999 video game by Konami, the movie adaptation of Silent Hills released in 2006 by director Christoph Gahn. A desperate mother, Rose, journeys to the abandoned town of Silent Hill to cure her daughter Sharon's sleepwalking problems. However, things take a terrible turn for the worse when Sharon suddenly goes missing and Rose attempts to find her in the nightmarish town. Fans of the Silent Hill game series know that the endings are not exactly clear-cut, and this movie didn't do a much better job at explaining it. The ending shows Sharon and Rose finally escaping the hellish town and returning back home. This would be a great way to end it, but we all know that Silent Hill doesn't quite work like that. Even back at home, Rose is still trapped in the mist world and Sharon is supposedly still possessed with her dark side, Alessa, who led them to Silent Hill in the first place. Theories explain this concept pretty well by describing it as a parallel universe which Rose is stuck in. Many fans believe that Alessa, now Sharon, trapped Rose in her mist world where she felt safe from the real world. This way, she would never be harmed again. Deep stuff. We can safely say that the movie's ending was just as enigmatic as the video games.
Tell me just what the hell is happening to me.
The Matrix Revolutions. Directed by the Wachowski siblings, this last installment of the Matrix trilogy, released in 2003, is puzzling to say the least. If you thought the first two films were a head-scratcher, think again. After realizing the only way to destroy the film's antagonist, Smith, is to join together, Neo confronts him. They both meet in the last confrontation with a fight scene to remember. When Smith plunges his hand into Neo's, it results in a cataclysmic explosion which presumably kills Smith and leaves Neo. We're left seeing his lifeless body emanating a bright glowing light, being carried off by the machines. Yes, we all have the same questions. What's happening to Neo? Did he defeat Smith? Did Neo actually die? If you haven't figured it out yet, the Matrix trilogy is filled with religious and visual symbology. Fans have scrutinized this ending and looked at specifically the meaning of Neo being enraptured in light. This can be interpreted as being the sacred lotus, which in Buddhist symbology represents purity and progress of the soul. Bearing this in mind, Neo can be seen as being fully transcended, leaving his physical form. It still seems very complex, but this lasting ambiguity to the film is how the directors intended it and how they want the viewer to remember the whole trilogy.
Life goes on.
The Tree of Life. Starring Brad Pitt, The Tree of Life is a 2011 epic drama directed by Terrence Malick. Not only is this movie ambiguous in general, but the plot doesn't follow a linear timeline, making it even more puzzling. It's about an American family in the 1950s and the story of Jack. We watch his life progress from the innocence of childhood to his complicated adult years. His ultimate goal is to reconcile with his father, but finds himself lost in the modern world and trying to find the meaning of life instead. Fans were left with more questions than answers when the ending left us with many ways of interpreting it. It shows the adult Jack walking through a desert landscape following his younger self to a beach where he finds all of the people he has encountered during his life. This beach scene has been analyzed in a few ways. The most popular theory is that Jack is passed into the figurative afterlife for a brief moment to find approval from his father. Instead of it being a literal afterlife, Jack is just creating a vision as a way to bring himself comfort and as a way to finally move on. No doubt, the ending of this film is extremely thought-provoking and philosophical. It helps when you understand the meaning just a bit better.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Pulp Fiction. Another movie which doesn't follow a chronological order is Quentin Tarantino's masterpiece, Pulp Fiction, released in 1994. This black comedy features a number of stars such as John Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, and Uma Thurman. Winning an abundance of awards over its fantastic cinematography, Tarantino's lack of linear narrative makes it a unique but sometimes confusing watch. Admittedly, this movie doesn't end as confusing as the others featured on this list, but it's still a very worthy mention. Rather than having one definite ending, fans have analyzed the movie as having several narrative threads, with an individual ending to each character's story. Each one faces moral dilemmas and is served with a didactic lesson. Not only are we left pondering over what the whole movie actually meant, we're also left with a burning question: what the hell is in that suitcase? This enigma is never solved in the film and is left to the viewer to figure it out. Could it be gold? Gems? The answer has never been official, but many speculate that it is the soul of Marcellus Wallace. No matter how bizarre and confusing we find this movie, it's still one of the most loved films of all time.
Don't worry. I'll talk to him.
Split. Kevin has 23 distinct personalities. The 24th is about to be released. This was the tagline to M. Night Shyamalan's 2017 release of Split. Since the movie came out, people have been buzzing about the ending. M. Night Shyamalan has become infamous for his twist endings, and this movie is no different. People were really excited to see what it had to offer. The big twist comes at the very end when the plot has already been resolved and even the Split title card has appeared on screen. Three women then begin discussing the events, and one asks about a guy in a wheelchair about 15 years beforehand and then asks what his name was. David Dunn, played by Bruce Willis, then leans forward and says,
Mr. Glass.
The camera stays on Dunn's face, strongly hinting that the emerging superhero from Shyamalan's 2000 film Unbreakable will face off against the Horde. This left us wondering if this is how the sequel to Unbreakable begins, and fans have been going crazy ever since.
Obviously, you can quote me on that because I just said anything else.
Captain America: Civil War. There was a lot left up in the air at the end of Captain America: Civil War, and some characters went their own way. Black Widow turned on Team Iron Man during the final moments of the airport battle in Berlin. During those final moments, it doesn't really tell us where she went after telling off Tony Stark at the Avengers compound. It's most likely she will run off like her former love interest, the Hulk, but we don't know for sure. If she did go solo, it is a great opportunity for a Black Widow movie. We're left to assume that Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier, is left in the hands of scientists of Wakanda so that they can treat him so he doesn't fly off the handle again. They were also hinting that they could come looking for him. Does they refer to Hydra, or are Tony Stark and the other Avengers going to come after him? Also, at the end of the movie, Tony Stark is left with a package from Steve Rogers with a note and a phone with one number programmed into it. It's the Cap's in case Tony ever needs to get in touch with him. Was it really necessary? Couldn't they just leave the movie on a cliffhanger?
I think those are their names.
Arrival. Arrival centers around linguistics professor Louise Banks as she leads an elite team when large spaceships land in 12 locations around the world. Banks and her team are tasked with figuring out why they are here and what they want. After many meetings with the aliens, called heptapods, Louise figures out that they are there to equip humanity with the gift of seeing the future because they need mankind's help 3,000 years later. Throughout the movie, we see flashbacks of Louise's life with her daughter. It starts to occur about the time she first makes contact with the heptapods. During her last encounter with them, she is able to foresee 18 months into the future, where she speaks with a Chinese general and convinces him not to attack the creatures. Eventually, we realize that every flashback that you've seen are actually flash forwards, and the major question is, why is Louise capable of seeing the future? The ending is a little confusing, so let us explain. The heptapods' language is non-linear, and they speak in symbols, so the logograms in their language have no beginning, middle, or end, and time is circular to them. So they are capable of seeing the future, and once Louise learns the language, she can too. The language was the gift the heptapods were speaking of, and now humanity can help them. So, what did you think? Did these movies mess with your head? Tell us what film endings confused you in the comments below. Before we forget, here is the answer for the emoji quiz. Did you get it? Let us know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned for new releases every day and check out our playlist. Thanks for watching.